everyone, I'm sure most of you by now have already heard about the draft regulations released by UGC a few days earlier, where they want to change certain criteria for the recruitment in higher education institutes. And there are many confusions about this particular notification released by UGC. I will share the link for downloading the draft guidelines in the description section of this video. But as I have mentioned, there are many confusions regarding this particular draft guidelines. Before we go on to discussing these guidelines and what it means for future prospective aspirants who want to work in higher education institutes of India, let me tell you one thing which most people are not considering at this point. Yesterday, I had a short conversation with my teacher, Professor Mrinmoy Pramanik at the Department of Comparative Indian Language and Literature, University of Calcutta. And he brought it to my attention that these guidelines are draft guidelines. These are not final. And UGC has also asked for feedback from any individual who is concerned with these guidelines. And I'll also let you know the process to send these feedbacks to UGC if you want to send some feedbacks at all. And since these are not final guidelines, there is not a lot to stress about at this point of time. However, the fundamental problem with these guidelines is that they create a lot of confusion, and at several points, especially at the point which concerns most of the viewers of this channel, there is a self-contradiction. And I am talking about the recruitment to the post of assistant professor at entry level, that is level 10. Now, if you don't know what a level 10 is, there are certain levels of recruitment in higher education institutes. When one gets recruited as an assistant professor at the entry level in any higher education institute, be it a college or a university, they get recruited at a level 10. And then they get promoted to level 11, then 12, then 13A, then 14. And this continues. So anyone who wants to get recruited for assistant professor at the entry level, that is level 10, some rules have changed in the draft guidelines. Again, this is not to say that these will stay in the final guidelines at all, but there are some confusions. And these confusions have been ignited even more by very poor journalism by many newspapers who have taken out lines from the guidelines and have decontextualized them to such an extent that people are getting confused and they are not sure whether to start or continue their preparation for NET or not, because many newspapers, and I'll show you some of these on your screen right now, have claimed that NET is now no longer compulsory for getting the post of an assistant professor. Guess what? It was not compulsory earlier either. If you had your PhDs registered back in 2009 or even earlier than that, then you would be eligible to teach in a higher education institute with just your PhD. NET was not required even before these guidelines came into existence. Now many people have forgotten about that because most of the people who watch this channel or most of the aspirants who are working to get their recruitments done at this point have definitely not had their PhDs registered before 2009. So this doesn't really apply to them. But then what changes have been brought into consideration in these draft guidelines? Firstly, let me state it very clearly. It has nowhere been said that NET will now no longer be needed. I will repeat, it has nowhere been mentioned in the entire 28-page document, and I have read it from the beginning to the end. It has nowhere been mentioned that NET is now no longer required. It is just that now there is an additional opportunity that instead of having completed NET, you can do something else as well in order to get recruited. But if you see the three principal criteria that are given in this guideline, then you will see the second criteria clearly states that a PG degree with 55% marks along with qualifying NET in the relevant subject. However, there are two more criteria. One, you will have a 4-year graduate degree with 75% minimum in the graduate degree, and you will have to have a PhD. Then you will be eligible for the post of an assistant professor. This is the first criteria. Or they clearly say or you will have to have a PG degree with 55% marks and net, which was the criteria all along. And either, and the third criteria is not very clear to me. It says something of a B or a BTech degree. I don't really know about that. Probably that is for the technical colleges. I'm not very sure about that, so I won't be commenting on that. Net is still very much in the game. Only difference is with the bachelor degree and the introduction of the NEP. The 4th year is now considered the equivalent of a master's degree, since the 4th year is supposed to be done in research and you will have some dissertation writing experience. And once you complete the 4-year bachelor degree, you can directly go into a PhD. It is just an inclusion of that possibility that if anyone chooses the 4-year bachelor degree program and then directly goes on to get a PhD without having done their master's degree, even then they would be eligible for an assistant professor's post. Now, what many people are not talking about at all is that NEP started in the year 2023, and any student who has been registered in the 4-year bachelor degree program is still in their 2nd year of undergraduation only. It will take them 2 more years to complete their graduation and then at least 3 or 4 more years to complete their PhD. And one more thing which people are not considering at all is that even if you want to get PhDs in any central or state university in India, you will have to have qualified net, at least in category C, that is the 3rd category of net. If you don't know about the 3 categories of net which have been recently introduced by UGC, I have made a detailed video about that on my channel. If you have not watched it, I will put a link somewhere upwards so that you can go ahead and check that one out. But what I'm trying to tell you here is that it will take people who are in this first category at least 5 more years to be eligible for this post. And in the next 5 years, everyone who is still considering to start preparing for the NET exam can still do so, because NET is still applicable for PhD and it is still the basic minimum requirement for an assistant professor according to the 2nd criterion mentioned in the UGC draft guidelines. Even if one assumes that these draft guidelines are not going to change and these are going to remain as they are, what is going to happen in this context is that perhaps NET will lose its uniqueness. It will never lose its value. It might lose its uniqueness insofar as it will no longer be the only way of getting a job as an assistant professor in universities and colleges. But then, even if you have NET, then it will always be an edge for you. Why do I say that? The fundamental reason why I'm talking about this is because even if you don't have NET, if you just have a PhD, and if someone has a PhD and a NET, then that person will obviously be at an advantage as compared to you. Now, when it comes to NET, the fundamental question which many people are trying to ask me is that what happens when a 4-year bachelor degree program is directly promoted to PhD? Then what happens to the NET exam? Because the NET exam is intrinsically tied with the master degree exam, because you have to have 55% in your master degree in order to appear for NET. So if you don't have a master's degree, why will you sit for NET? And what will happen to the NET exam, especially when people will compare it with those who have a 4-year bachelor degree and a PhD, and those who have a 3-year bachelor degree, 2 years master degree, and then a PhD. And suppose with that 2-year master degree they also have NET, then how will you compare these two types of candidates who have applied for the same post? If you think about it, you will soon realize that the person who has a bachelor degree, a master degree, and a PhD and a NET is definitely way more experienced and way more qualified than a person who has a 4-year bachelor degree and a 3 to 4 year PhD and no master degree and no NET. the final reason why this is true is because NET is a national exam, and even to this day, despite the fact that it remains MCQ and there are many flaws to it, it remains one of the fundamental ways to ensure transparency and clarity and honesty in the recruitment process in higher education institutes. And if this exam loses its uniqueness, as I said, then nothing will be sadder than this. But as I have mentioned, many newspapers have taken this opportunity to create spicy and juicy headlines out of the draft guidelines that UGC has provided, just to ensure that their articles are read throughout the nation. And of course, after publication of these articles, students who are not so well aware, who don't have the time, energy, or patience or wherewithal to understand a 28-page detailed guideline, they will obviously be confused and they will not be sure about what to do. So if you are a student and if you are a net aspirant watching this video, let me tell you this for sure: you have nothing to worry about. NET is going to stay as it is, at least for the next 5 to 7 years. And even after that, I don't think that the exam is going anywhere, because there are millions of people who have qualified NET and are still looking for a job. And if UGC is certainly going to decide that NET is not going to be required, as many of these headlines are saying, which I repeat is not true, then it will be a big problem for not only these candidates but also for UGC, because NET is one of its greatest money making machines. Every year there are millions of applications for NET, and they are increasing the application fee every single year, and they are practically minting money out of it, which is not something I'm against. It's a common practice to take an application fee for conducting an exam. They're also spending a lot. I'm not saying that they are making profits out of it. What I'm saying is that they are making a lot of money. They're also spending a lot of money. But it's a serious exam for UGC and NTA, and it's the exam with which NTA got its popularity and authenticity in the market. So I don't think NET is going anywhere. And if you're a NET aspirant, you don't have to worry about anything. If you have any doubts about the UGC draft guidelines, if you want to know about the promotional schemes, how to get promoted from assistant professor level 10 to 11, 11 to 12, what about the post of an assistant librarian, how do we apply for that, there are many other details in that particular guideline. All of that won't be possible for me to discuss it in one video, but if you want a detailed discussion about that, please let me know down in the comments. Once again, if you like the video, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Till then, hasta la vista.